Absolutely. So I was adopted at a really young age, just a couple months old, by a white family in Maple Grove, Minnesota. So that's kind of why they wanted to adopt a kid, and I ended up being the one. So I got brought to Maple Grove, Minnesota, and I've lived there ever since. Grew up obviously in a white community, a white school area. Obviously playing sports, it allowed me to meet a lot of different types of people, definitely. And then I did go to Osseo Junior High, so that was also kind of more diversified in that sense. And I think that that was a really great thing for me, just personally, obviously not being white and kind of always being around white people. So it until I got older, I would say that I didn't really understand. I guess I knew that I wasn't white, but I didn't really understand the full intensity of that living in the world that we live in today. And then my dad was the hockey player in the family. So I have an older sister, and she didn't end up playing hockey. And so I was kind of the last hope in that sense of keeping hockey around. And then he introduced me to the game of hockey. And at first I did skating lessons, and I had figure skates on, and I did not like that at all. So he was kind of like, uh-oh. And then he just decided one day to sign me up just cause to see what would happen. And then I got put into hockey skates, and the rest is history at that point. So I never wanted to get off the ice. And obviously it turned out pretty well. But yeah, so that's kind of the way I got introduced to the game. Obviously I had a lot of, I don't want to say advantage, but opportunity in the sense of like just the community I was in. The association it's a pretty big association because we combined with Osseo. So we're Osseo Maple Grove. So just the opportunity for me to even play hockey, obviously being in Minnesota and being the state of hockey. And then obviously with my dad and his background, and then just the accessibility of the game really. So that was why I got introduced to it. And luckily for him, I ended up enjoying it enough to stay in it. And then it turned out to be a really good thing for me, both within the game and obviously outside in my life. So that's kind of how it happened. But yeah, and then just living in Maple Grove, I played like softball and lacrosse growing up, and went to Maple Grove Senior High, which is obviously predominantly white too. So just kind of my background, I've really been around a lot of the white community and the white culture, which is totally fine. But until I got older, I didn't really fully see how much that would have impacted me and just who I am, because, Colombia and being Hispanic and all that is still a part of me, but it's not really something that I know a lot about. And so for me, that's kind of sad in the sense of like, it's to nobody's fault of their own, but like, I just don't know a lot about it. And so it kind of makes me want kids that are like me, no matter if they're adopted from Colombia or somewhere else, to really understand that culture is important, and like where you are from, like where you were born, and then where you grow up, all of that matters. And it's just, it's equal in that sense, I think, with matter and how important that is. So that's just something that I kind of, as I've gotten older and kind of obviously becoming into the woman I am today, something I feel like I have missed out on, but definitely not something that I'm just gonna say, oh, it happened and I move on. So it's a big part of the learning process for me as well. And just trying to get to know me and the culture that I was obviously coming from, and obviously the culture that I'm in now, which is why I'm introduced to the game of hockey too. So I just hope that someday hockey can just be for everybody, no matter what background you're from. It can be accessible no matter who you are. But I just happen to be really fortunate and in the situation that I am in, and obviously found a lot of success in that too. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So for those that don't know, I played with Summer Thibodeau, who ended up being a senior captain my freshman year coming into Bemidji. We played together at Maple Grove, and it was my freshman year, obviously, at Maple Grove, her senior year in high school. And she just like wanted to play college, but she wasn't really sure about it. And then I know that they ended up coming to watch her, and obviously I was just on the team coincidentally. So that was her first exposure to me just as a player. So credit to Summer for that, because that was probably a big part of that. But yeah, and then ever since then, they were kind of my first ever, ironically, just they reached out and we kind of had communication, whether that be just sent a letter in the mail and then eventually, turn that into conversation and recruiting and whatnot. But that was kind of the first ever interaction I had at the college, and it just happened to be the one that I ended up picking. But I had a great relationship. Obviously, Amber Fricklin, who no longer is with us, she was the one that recruited me, and she was very patient and persistent and just very enjoyable to be recruited by, I would say, because that isn't always the case in some cases. But she made me feel valued, not only as a hockey player, but as a person. And we just have a lot of the same beliefs and I knew that she supported me and believed in me and what I could do here, both, like I said, as a player and as a person. And that obviously got me excited. And so it just ended up working out, and I didn't want to necessarily go super far away from home, but I still wanted to be far enough. And I've always wanted to play in the WCHA growing up, watching them. And Bemidji just felt really, really right when I came here. And it was actually my first tour and everything. So it just ironically happened to work out, but it was definitely, I'll credit Summer a little bit, and definitely obviously the people that recruited me, because great people are 100% who I want to be around. And Frick was definitely one of those people that made me want to come here for sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So we have a WCHA leadership crew, just like a couple upperclassmen from each team with Jen Flowers. And we had just been talking about some of the events that had happened, obviously, in our own backyard here, being in Minnesota. And I've always been passionate about these areas, and especially now I've had been really outspoken. And so in one of those meetings, I had been more outspoken maybe than others. And Jen just ended up asking if she could call me a couple weeks after, and we ended up just talking on the phone for a little bit. And she was like, so I have a question that I want to ask you. And she just asked me if I wanted to be a part of this type of a group. And I was like, oh, that sounds absolutely awesome. Like I didn't really know what I was signing myself up for necessarily, but I knew it was going to obviously be something really awesome. And then once we actually got the group started and started meeting and everything, that was obviously even more grateful that I was a part of that group than I would have originally thought. But she was definitely, she came and approached me, and I 100% was super grateful that she did that. There's a lot that obviously we want to accomplish, and we know that, and it's not an easy task and tasks to accomplish, and it's not going to be overnight either. So, with diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's just 3 of the big topics, not to count the subtopics underneath all those. And it's gonna be a little bit hard because we have a lot of those areas to cover, and obviously, like diversity is a big one right now, just as we see how the world and everything's transcended since, and a lot of more attention being brought to that area, which is obviously super important, and that's basically the reason why we officially came together. So diversifying the game is 100% a big thing, but it's also going to be hard because that comes into accessibility and just opportunities and resources, and kind of a cultural shift within our society, but also within the game of hockey. And we recognize that, and we know that that takes a village, and it doesn't just take our group here either. So within that, our goal is to definitely make the game more accessible and to have that outreach to communities and areas, and just to make sure that they have the ability to play the sport if they want, and it's not too expensive, or to make sure that they at least know that that's a possibility for them. Because some people don't even know about hockey, or some don't even know that they can play hockey. They just see other people playing hockey. And so representation to me matters a ton. And it's been a testament not only within myself, because I didn't necessarily see people that looked like me doing what I'm doing, but knowing that I can be that for somebody else, whether they are adopted or whether they do come from a background that doesn't know a lot about hockey or isn't culturally been there for them. That's all very important to us. And then obviously the equity side being, it's kind of, we have men's and women's coming together and uniting, which is huge. And in order for women's to succeed at all the levels, we need the help on the men's side. And that includes youth levels, that includes high school, college, professional. And just to me, being a woman, having the ability to, or the idea that even playing professionally could be an option for me is one thing, but obviously to make a living is another thing. So we're making strides there for sure, but we're definitely not where we want to be with that equity side of it. And then obviously inclusion, making sure that everybody feels like they can play the game of hockey and they can be valued and be appreciative of who they are and who they want to be in the game, but also not be afraid to just be who they are, because some people are afraid of that, and they're afraid of what people might say or do to them because of who they love or what they look like. And none of that should ever be a thing, but that is the reality of hockey right now. And we don't always see it everywhere, but it is still around. And that's just something that we hope to culturally shift out and just make hockey a game that everybody wants to come watch and everyone wants to be a part of, and everybody wants to play, whether it's, you're actually playing, or you're just going outside and playing on the backyard, in the backyard, on the rink, or whatever the case may be. But making it something that all people are proud to be a part of in any way, shape, or form, and to just represent in a positive way, because we know that there are people that don't feel like they would be accepted or valued, whether that means playing or watching a game. And that's just something that kind of breaks our heart, because we all know how hockey can be a really amazing thing, and it's made a huge impact on all of us in our own ways. But that's not the case for everybody. And we hope that our future kids and grandkids and just little boys and girls that look like us can see that and want to be that too. So that's a few of our many goals that we have. But it's going to be exciting, and continuing to work with people and other outreach and organizations that can help make these dreams possible for us. Absolutely. That is the $1,000,000 question, I think, for me personally. Obviously, hockey is a big passion of mine, and it's something that I want to be a part of and play for as long as possible. So I know that no matter what I end up deciding next year, I will hopefully, fingers crossed, be able to play the game of hockey. And then within that, I also hope to obviously continue the work that I've been doing in this initiative with DEI, and seeing kind of where those roads lead, because there's a lot of work that I can do off the ice as well. And I think that's something that just taking the opportunity, knowing that I'm a senior, knowing I do have the opportunity to come back or play hockey, but also continuing that, maybe playing professionally or whatever the case may be. I know that I would love to continue to play hockey, and I know that obviously I'm going to continue to do the work that I've been doing within this initiative, and grow the game in all areas and continue to make hockey a better version of itself. But how that will look for me personally, I'm not exactly sure at this moment in time, which is okay. But I do know that no matter what I do end up deciding, that I will 100% make the most of it, and I'll be happy. And I know that I'll be making a difference in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, absolutely. I always have a lot to say. I know people that know me know that. But I would just say that I just think acknowledging who you are as an individual, like you said, your platform. Another word that I like to use is privilege. That always gets maybe a negative outlook on that word, but I think it's a great word, because everybody does have some sort of privilege in themselves, and to be able to use the platform and the privilege and our voices that we have, I think it's absolutely huge. And in order to make cultural shifts within the game of hockey or within our society or whatever the case may be, we're going to need people that maybe aren't affected by the certain situations to not only acknowledge that, but to listen and to educate, and just to continue to use their voice and platforms, because it's the only way we can make change. It's one thing to support people and say that you do, but it's another thing to act upon that. And I think until we can act upon that, and everybody starts to love and appreciate and care for one another in the ways that we know we can, and to get past those differences to make the world a better place, I think that's going to be the best thing for us moving forward in all areas of life. So I just encourage everybody to try to continue to better yourselves, try to learn more about things that might not even affect you, because at the end of the day, they affect the people that you love in some way, shape, or form as well. And the society and the world you live in will be a better place, not only for yourself, but the people that you love in the future. And just continue to speak up. And I am super grateful that you've given me this opportunity, because I will 100% always speak up and speak out as best I can, knowing that, there might be negativity in the air, but hopefully someday everybody will come together and unite as one, and we can leave this world a better place.